Okay, now we're on to The Dark Knight. Holy shit! This is one of the greatest sequels ever made. It's just phenomenal. You see, this is what sequels should do. Build on the last movie, and this movie not only does that, it sets the standards for basically every movie that came out after this. I mean, if you look at most movies nowadays, especially superhero films, they say, we want to make it more realistic and epic, just like The Dark Knight. Let me take you back to 2008. The hype for this movie was just outrageous. It was fueled by media speculation and the unfortunate passing of Heath Ledger. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing anything centered around The Dark Knight. It was not just a movie, it was a phenomenon. It was the first movie that I ever saw where everyone stood up and applauded. It's just that good. Well, anyways, let's just talk about the plot. In this movie, Batman and the police, along with District Attorney Harvey Dent, are bent on finishing off the mob in Gotham City. And in their desperation, the mob turns to the Joker, who is bent on wreaking chaos and bringing people to his level, causing the destruction of Gotham City. Okay, so basically everyone is back from Batman Begins, with the exception of Katie Holmes as Rachel. I don't know why she wouldn't come back for the sequel. Maybe it was the fact that Tom didn't want her to have any bigger movie than he ever did, but who cares? We're stuck with Jake Gyllenhaal's sister. I think that she's a better actress than Katie Holmes, but Katie, honestly, is a lot more attractive, we will say. Still, it's not that distracting to have someone else in Rachel's role. Alright, enough about Rachel. Let's talk villains. So there are a bunch of mob guys whose names seem to escape me. Then there's the Scarecrow, who appears for a short amount of time, basically in cameo form. But at least it's Batman who takes him out this time, and not fucking Rachel. There's Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face, whose story is done so well in this. I mean, he seems generally incorruptible. If you're unfamiliar with the comics, then it might seem like some surprise when Harvey eventually falls and becomes Two-Face, but it's done pretty well. It's not just thrown in there simply because he becomes Two-Face in the comics. There is a reason behind it. And here, though, he's dating Bruce's best friend, Rachel, and he only falls when Rachel is killed, because he feels like he was the only one who lost everything, when in reality, he didn't. So he goes rogue and starts killing all the people responsible for Rachel's murder, which includes members of the mob and some crooked cops. In the end, it leads to an exciting climax involving Jim Gordon and his family, but I'll get to that later. Well, there's only one more villain left on this list to talk about, and we saved the best for last. I'm of course talking about Heath Ledger as the Joker. One of the all-time best villains in a motion picture. Every time that he's on screen, you don't know what he's going to do, you just know that it isn't going to end well for someone. What makes him such a great villain is his spontaneous nature, his random comedic moments, and he can also be very scary at times. Some of my favorite scenes involve him telling the stories of how he got these scars. It's no surprise that some of these stories are related to the graphic novel, The Killing Joke, where Chris Nolan says he got some of his inspirations for the movie. I'm really glad that Ledger won an Oscar for his portrayal. It's pretty amazing, actually. It's one of the few times where I'm like, finally, an Oscar that was a worthy choice. Like, seriously, the Oscars have really gone down lately. I love the talks throughout the movie, and some of the quotes are pretty memorable. This movie never lets up. It throws out so many twists. The action scenes are so much better, and some of the moments are incredibly tense. Like the scene near the end of the movie with Joker and the cruise ships. That was just awesome. Anyways, this is the last time we will see Joker in the movie, and it leaves a great impact on the film. By this time, you think that his main plan is to destroy Gotham in a fistfight with Batman, but surprisingly, it is in fact to make Harvey fall and make the city lose hope. This leads to the ending, which is pretty intense. It doesn't necessarily end on a happy note, but it doesn't need to. It's called The Dark Knight, and, well, not something else. So basically, in the ending, Harvey dies and it seems like all hope is lost, but with his quick thinking, Batman takes the fall because sometimes the truth isn't good enough. He's not the hero we need, but the one we deserve, and The Dark Knight does all of that and more. And that's basically my review of the second movie. Overall, it's pretty damn good. 10 out of 10 movie. All that's left to say is, you either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Or, like in this franchise's case, you either die a trilogy, or you live long enough to see yourself become Batman and Robin. So now this leads to the final film in the trilogy, The Dark Knight Rises. Okay, now we're on to the final film in Nolan's series. And this film is a great ending to a fantastic trilogy. And before I go on, I would like to send my sincere condolences to those who lost their lives at that screening in Colorado. And I would just like to say that despite this tragedy, people should still go and see this movie. It was just some sick individual who lost his mind. And in memory of some of those people, I think we should all go to the theaters just to show that we're not afraid. Once again, I send my condolences, but I have a review to do, so let's get right into it. I will keep this as spoiler-free as possible since the movie came out. I won't give away the ending, but I recommend that you watch it before this review, so it'll probably make a little more sense. So, the plot of this movie is as followed. It's been 8 years since the ending of The Dark Knight, and Batman has taken the fall for Harvey Dent's killings. So because of this, Bruce has basically been in exile at Wayne Manor. He's a lot older now and looks like hell. Nobody really knows what he is anymore. He's just antisocial and nobody sees him. He's just a plain, depressed individual. It isn't until Selina Kyle appears that he starts to redevelop interest in getting out of the house and becoming Batman again. Aside from Batman, feeling pain and hurting for all that's happened, Gordon is feeling guilty for what's been going on. Wayne Enterprises is suffering and everything just seems gloom, but things get worse when Bane heads to Gotham with plans to destroy the city and complete the work of the League of Shadows. So Batman has no choice but to put the suit back on and end Bane's reign of terror. So yeah, there's your basic plotline of the movie. I think everyone did a pretty good job in this movie, and it ended the series on a phenomenal level. The ending is fantastic. It's one of the best endings ever. I know I'm a Batman fan saying this, but seriously, it's probably the best Batman movie ending since '89, at least. There's some new characters in this movie, like Bruce's love interest, Miranda Tate, played by Marion Cotillard, or however you say it, I don't know. And there's also a cop named John Blake, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Christian Bale once again does a good job as Bruce Wayne / Batman, and to me, he probably did his best acting in this movie versus the other two. Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman both are great as usual, and I'm going to miss them very much as Alfred and Lucius Fox. Gary Oldman gives a powerhouse performance as usual, and he works well with Gordon-Levitt as John Blake. Yeah, a new character who I liked a lot in this movie. He reminded me a lot of Gordon, but a bit younger. Okay, but the people you're probably looking most forward to hearing about are Anne Hathaway as Catwoman and Tom Hardy as Bane. Well, let's talk about Anne Hathaway first. So as Selina Kyle, she's actually surprised me a lot in this movie. I really like that she was a bullshitter, and what I mean is how she fooled so many people. Am I good? Am I bad? Am I on your side? Am I not? Constantly switching between that, just like Catwoman should do. Even though she's not really called Catwoman, you just know it's Catwoman. Now, the only thing I'm not the biggest fan of is her costume. I just wish that she had a cowl on. If she just had a cowl with what she was already wearing, like the goggles and that, then I would have not really had any complaints. But then again, I shouldn't let that ruin it for me. Overall, Anne Hathaway is a pretty good Catwoman. Now, do I think she's the best? No. The best Catwoman is from Arkham City, and then followed by Michelle Pfeiffer, and then Hathaway. Sorry, Halle Berry, but your movie was fucking terrible. It was just awful. I never want to see it again or think about it. It's awful. Alright, well, since we covered Selina Kyle, it's time to cover Bane. Now, Bane steals the show. I was more curious about what they were going to do with Bane instead of the Joker, mainly because they were changing up the character to make him seem more realistic. So instead of taking Venom, he has a pain reliever, and it's a fucking monster. Bane is fucking scary in this movie. I like how he acts with his eyes, and his voice is pretty cool. But is he better than the Joker from The Dark Knight? Well, let me put it this way. The Joker is more fun and entertaining and enjoyable to watch. But Bane, on the other hand, is way more threatening and imposing and is a much more dangerous opponent than the Joker, I think. I mean, he just overpowers Batman. It isn't every day that someone is able to kick Batman's ass. The fight scenes in this movie are easily the best of the trilogy, and it's just awesome seeing these two fight each other like, ugh, punch you back. To me, this is the most different feeling Batman movie. It's almost like a war movie, and it's very interesting to see Batman fight in the day. This movie starts out strong with that opening scene, which is probably better than The Dark Knight's. But after that, it gets slow for a few, and then once Bruce comes back as Batman, the rest of the movie is just an awesome spectacle. This is probably the best ending to a trilogy that you're ever likely to see for a while. It's not often that you get a trilogy that has a good beginning, a good middle, and a good ending. But there's always this one. My only real complaints there is no real mob for Batman to deal with. There's no organized crime. It's just the only thing is Bane. But it's unnecessary this story. I also wish that some prior villains would have had a little bit more screen time, but I'll get over it. So, in conclusion, The Dark Knight Rises is a fitting closure to probably the best comic book trilogy ever. I think I like Rises and The Dark Knight about the same, for a few different reasons. I'm glad they ended the series, but at the same time, it's sad to see it's over. So, like me, you're probably wondering what's next for Batman. Well, with Man of Steel coming out next year, it's said that he will lead into the long-awaited Justice League movie. I know, finally we're getting a Justice League movie. So come on, DC, you better get your ass moving on this one. So obviously Batman will appear in that movie, and it appears that Batman will once again be rebooted and will have his own new solo film in about 4 to 5 years called The Batman. I'm actually looking forward to this one because it's going to be a different take on the character, and hopefully we will get a Batman movie that resembles the animated series a bit more. That would be awesome because I'm a huge fan of the visual look of the series, or they can make it just like Arkham City or Arkham Asylum. I mean, those games are based on plausibles, so it could work. So anyways, thank you all for watching my review of the trilogy, and please go see The Dark Knight Rises. I know some people like to wait for movies to come out on DVD, and I mean, you shouldn't miss out on what is arguably one of the best films you will see on the big screen for a long time, especially if you see it in IMAX, which I recommend because it's way more awesome. Once again, thanks for watching, and now if you'll excuse me, I'm off to see The Dark Knight Rises again for probably the 4th or 5th time, because I'm a Batman fanatic. Gee, I wish I could end it with the cool Batman quote. Oh, I got it. I'm Batman. Now go see my fucking movie. Thanks for watching. Now, goodbye.
I never said thank you.